Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Equipped for Impact. We're glad you're joining us, and it is that back to school season. So we decided to go back into the archives to actually our first episode of season 2, and it's a back to school episode. And it was just so good. We felt like we needed to just re-air this as it was. I'm sure you guys will get a lot out of it, and it's going to be helpful to all of you as you are getting your kids ready for back to school. So Lewis and I are prepping here at our school where we serve, ready for back to school. And so we're releasing this for you guys, and we're going to kick off season 3 next week. So make sure you subscribe and share this with other parents who may find it useful. And I hope you all enjoy. If you've got some back to school tips, or you want to tell us how great Mr. Penn pens are, go ahead and send us an email at podcast@waynechristian.org, and we'll see you in season 3 next week. Welcome to Equipped for Impact, the podcast designed to assist Christian parents, leaders, and educators to raise up the next generation to stand firm in their faith and influence their world for Christ. We're your hosts. I'm Nate.
And I'm Lewis.
So let's get started, and welcome back, everybody, to Season 2. We're back after summer. We've made it through, well, almost. It's still summer for us. By the time you're listening to it, it's probably not. But it's time for that magical moment parents love and kids, well, probably just tolerate, right? And that's back to school. So, Lewis, have you finished your back to school supply shopping yet?
We have started it, and I think there's a few things that we still have to get.
So are you like a Walmart back-to-school shopper, or are you an Amazon? What do you do?
We're kind of at a weird stage in our life. So we do Walmart, we do Target, but now our girls are at that stage where they want to look on Amazon and see see. And so we went to Target a few weeks ago and got some stuff, and then it was like, but I don't want to get my pens from Target. And I was like, what do you mean? You know, like they're pens, aren't they?
It's a special thing. Yes. You got a special pen you want?
And so my daughters wanted to get their pens from Amazon. And cheap plug here, right? So this is that commercial, like maybe they'll sponsor us one day, but like Mr. Penn, like I really like Mr. Penn pens and highlighters.
Okay.
And so my daughters have gotten turned on to Mr. Penn pens and highlighters. And so
that's discipleship right there.
Yes. and so Amazon has them. I mean, you can go to the Mr. Penn website and get them too, but I think they found some on Amazon. So we're like at that weird stage where it's like some Walmart, some Amazon, some Target.
Okay, so, excellent.
How about you? Have you guys?
Full on Walmart. We have not gone yet, but we have it scheduled.
Yeah.
We're going to go and knock it all out in one big trip, and then we're done. That's it.
Isn't it crazy that you have to schedule it? Because we scheduled ours too. Like our girls are like, when are we going school supplies shopping? When are we going school supplies? And then finally it was like, we're going to go on Tuesday, July 22nd or whatever it was, but like that was the day. Like
it's gonna happen.
And so we went and had dinner. We actually went to Gardner. So we went to Gardner. We had dinner in Gardner, and then it was
like a whole outing.
Yeah, I mean it was a long time, and it's crazy because like my daughters, I've got a freshman in high school and I've got a 6th grader, and so. Like school supplies are expensive.
Yeah,
like,
they are.
I mean, I was like, wow, it's crazy how expensive they've gotten.
It's true. Yeah. And notebook paper. I remember you could get like a pack of notebook paper for like 10 cents.
You could.
Back to school time.
Yeah.
And then it was like, now they're what? It's like 50 or 75, $1.20, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which that's also the other thing is the Dollar Tree.
Yeah.
Things aren't $1 anymore.
They're not $1.25.
We sound really old.
We are. We are.
To the middle schoolers, I'm old.
I'll be 40 this year.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. A big one. Well, enough of the banter here. Let's talk about this back to school season. So let me just pitch that to you, Lewis. Like, we're here back to school. Like, why does this matter? And what should parents be thinking about in this kind of phase of the year?
Well, when you talk about starting the school year, right? You guys have probably heard the old cliche saying, start strong, or start out like you can hold out. And the truth is that there's a lot of truth even in those cliche statements, right? Because the first few weeks of school, they're going to set the tone for the entire year. Habits form fast, and we as parents, right, we're not just trying to help our kids pass their classes, but we're trying to help them grow and disciple them and help them become more like Jesus. And so whatever rhythms you set now, spiritual, relational, practical, they're going to carry through the rest of the year. And, the summer is that time where bedtimes may be later, routines may get out of habits, and so this is kind of a time to reset. We actually, so as of August 1st, we've kind of, for the last few years, that becomes kind of our let's start getting ready back mentally and physically for school. So we reinstitute bedtime and we start going to bed a little bit earlier. I mean, they still get to stay up a little bit later because school hasn't started completely yet. But we start instituting like bedtimes again and reminding them of those routines. And here's the thing, right, parents, if you want to set study, faith, and church rhythms, you've got to start now, because if you wait until October, then that means that you're already behind. I found this really interesting quote from Dallas Willard, and I'm just going to paraphrase it. But the idea is that discipleship is the process of becoming who Jesus would be if he were you. And so parents, what are we doing now to help our children understand that process, right? Like the Holy Spirit resides in them, right? I mean, that's what the Bible tells us. And so they are becoming image bearers of Christ. And so discipleship is that process of becoming who Jesus would be if he were you. And we have this great way to really frame the school year as a discipleship opportunity for the whole year, and not just really about the academics, but the whole nature of the child.
Yeah, and I love that because, well, our last episode, way back at the end of last school year, was actually a summer reading list.
Yes.
So Dallas Willard, he's got his book, Renovation of the Heart, which is a great book on spiritual formation and growth and all of that. It's an older read. It's a dense read. So if you're looking for something like that, that's a good one there. Yeah. But I also love, like we've talked about James Smith's You Are What You Love and that book and his whole idea of just the rhythms that you establish really direct your heart in the direction that it's going to go. And so you can either just let the culture set those rhythms, or you can intentionally set those rhythms in a way that will point your heart and your child's heart in the direction it should go. And so school year, it's kind of like January 1st for some people, it's that new kickoff, of just kind of a new season. And so that's a time of like, okay, what are the rhythms we're going to set as a family this year? And so I really like that of this season is, okay, let's take a minute, here at the beginning of August, what are we going to do as a family to say, what are our priorities and what really are those anchors that are going to anchor our family through this next school year.
And when you think about it, right, like everything starts back in August, September, right? So if your kids play sports, it starts back in August. If your kids are involved in dance or extracurricular like gymnastics, karate, it runs on the typical school year. And so you're not just starting school back, but you're starting the routines that are going to set the schedule for the year.
So what we've got today is there are really three, we're going to call them parent plays. So these are three plays you can put in place this school year to really set those rhythms and help disciple your children. So that first one, we kind of already hinted at, that's to set those anchors. So what are those anchors going to be for your family, moving into this school year? So, we're not saying obviously your teenager has to wake up at 5 a.m. and read, through the book of Leviticus because they're doing a read the Bible in a year plan. Like that's not going to work. But what are some things that should be anchors for families early in the school year?
Let me just say, though, that if your kid wakes up at 5 a.m. and that's their plan to read Leviticus, please email us.
podcast@wayneChristian.org.
Let us know how that works out, because I would be curious.
Of course, I saw one place that somebody was saying they were going to get in shape, and that was one of their goals. And then they read Leviticus where it says the fat belongs to the Lord, and so they just gave up on that goal.
They just gave up because they wanted to belong to the Lord.
That was a Bible joke and a dad joke. Like, it's too good to pass up.
If your quiet time involves Leviticus, you are more spiritual than me. But I think it goes back to some of the things we've said in the past. And if this is the first time you've ever listened to an episode, I'd encourage you to go back, listen to season 1. There's some good stuff.
Yep.
But I think it just starts with are you making time for short morning devotions? Right?
Yep.
Even just 2 to 3 minutes, nothing complicated. I have one that I do. It's called The Navigators, and it's like a little 5-minute devotion. And so maybe having your kid just do a short morning devotion. Maybe it's just as simple as praying with them before they leave, or maybe on the ride to school, maybe over breakfast. At normal breakfast time, right? Because that's when we eat breakfast.
Yep.
Or
not
whatever.
after 10:30.
Not after 10:30, right? Well, because you're already at school, right?
Yeah.
And so, or really whatever works for your family. I mean, every family is different. And look, don't do what we're telling you to do because you think somehow we're super spiritual and we've got it figured out. Like, find the routine that's going to work for you and your family, and maybe even let them see you reading the Bible.
Yep.
Or you praying, because kids are going to notice that kind of stuff, and they pay attention to what you're doing, and so you may not think it has an impact. Now, I remember you shared the story in one of the episodes about your mom and the way she would leave her Bible, and you knew because you had her coffee cup. You
could hear the spoon stirring the coffee every morning.
And so all of that influenced you, and so
because I do drink coffee while I have my quiet time.
Yeah,
it's important.
Are you a coffee drinker?
I am a coffee
I
drinker.
didn't know that about you, I don't think.
Yeah. Coffee, and I do eat breakfast for dinner. But usually it would have to be decaf coffee if it's going with breakfast for dinner. So it's too late for caffeine.
Too late. So see, all sorts of crazy rules that you have to follow if you eat breakfast for dinner.
Because it messes you up.
Yeah, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I guess whatever floats your boat, right?
Yeah, and that'll help. But having these anchors, right? And it's the routines, it's the rhythms, whatever is important. Just find what works for you and be intentional about it. And don't be afraid to mix it up, right? Yeah. Just because you might be late to this, maybe you're listening to this in October, November. It's okay. You see, just admit that something's not working and find a new rhythm and routine. The main thing is that you're intentional about it. And you set those priorities instead of letting the culture or your schedule set your priorities. It's a classic, don't let the tail wag the dog situation. So that's the first one. Find those anchors and set them early if you can. The second one is really thinking about things starting back up again, and that's youth group. So make youth group or your kids' ministry a non-negotiable. Make that a priority in your family's life. Like, what does that look like for a family and getting back into a youth ministry at their church?
For a lot of our churches, they take the summer off when it comes to their normal routine, right? So my church, we start up, I think it's the Wednesday after Labor Day. Okay. And that's kind of like, the season of our midweek services. And so we take off Memorial Day through Labor Day, and then in September we start back up with our midweek. And so whatever your church does, if they take off the summer and then they start back up, if it's Wednesday night, if it's Sunday night, if it's another night during the week, you've got to realize that it's not an activity that you're trying to fit in. Like, it has to become the lifeline of your teenager's faith. It's got to become the lifeline of your preteen or your child, and even you as a parent, right? Because if it's just seen as something that you do when it's convenient, then you're never going to do it, right? Right. It has to become a priority for you and your family. And we talk about why it matters. Well, because there's friendships that form in church that can sustain your child. I think about just some kids that I've known over the course of my time in ministry. Some of the best friendships that were formed in youth group. And these might have been kids who maybe weren't very popular in their school. Maybe they even got picked on or bullied just because of the nature of their school. But youth group became an escape because they got to be around people that loved them, that helped them, that mentored them. And so parents, they can form these friendships. They can develop relationships where they're being mentored, and it also gives them a safe place to wrestle with real questions, right? And so again, they may be encountering things that the culture is feeding them that they don't know how to ask or who to ask. And being involved in a youth group, being involved in an Awana club or a Word of Life group or whatever your church does gives them an opportunity to have that.
Yep. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me. Like, I always wanted multiple adults saying the same thing I was, to my children. And I even, when I was a youth pastor, I wanted multiple adults saying the same thing I was and the parents were to the children in my youth group, because we would go to camps and we would bring in guest speakers and we'd have multiple adult leaders. And it was like the more voices saying the same thing, it's more likely that the message will get through, right? And so as a parent, it's the same thing, Sunday school teacher, youth leader, teacher at a Christian school, myself, I want all of these voices all echoing the same thing together. And so that's a great chance. And if it's a good church and a good youth group, good children's group, things like that, they're also going to incorporate places for your child, your teenager to learn to serve and exercise their gifts in a low stakes environment. If it's the first time they're getting up and doing a lesson in front of younger kids than they are, you don't want that to be, when they're 20, 25 and they've never done it before. Like if they get reps in a low stakes environment when they're a teenager, like that can just have so much. It's that compound interest, the earlier you start, the better it'll be for them. They can then have a lifelong of service that they develop because they were learning those skills as a teenager.
And we see it as a long-term investment, right? So attending now is that long-term investment in their spiritual walk, and it's going to make an impact. Lifeway did a research back probably about 8 years ago, and what they found is that students who are actively involved in their church during high school are more likely, twice as likely, to stay engaged in their faith after graduation. And it's not about attending, but it's about serving, right?
Actively involved.
Yep. And so, parents, the way that you can help with this is treat it like you would another extracurricular activity, right? So your kid isn't going to miss a game. They might not miss practice, and you're not going to let them skip those things. And so why do we do it with church? Offer to drive their friends, like make it an outing for them and their friend group. So maybe their friend's school doesn't have their friend's church doesn't have a midweek service, and yours does. Then make it your calling, your mission to make your call this rolling youth ministry where you're picking up 3 or 4 kids. I can tell you that youth pastors out there are gonna love the mom that shows up with the minivan that has like 6 kids that just fall out of it.
There you go.
I'm at this weird stage right now where I'm actually going to be leading the teens at our church.
Okay.
And so, I'm a little bit nervous and excited, right? So I've got that nerf-sided kind of thing going on.
There you go.
Because it's probably been, like 15 years since I was last a youth pastor at a church or leading teens. And so I have the opportunity to do that. And so, look, I'll be honest with you, like, Mom, Dad, like if you show up in a 7-passenger minivan, like
with 7 teenagers,
I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna be excited, and so just find ways to do that, and then ask what they've learned afterward, not in an interrogative way, right? But to understand like what stood out to you tonight. One of the things that I ask my girls anytime that they're involved in a lesson is, what did you get out of today's message? And they, typical teenagers like, I don't know, right? But probe deeper.
If you're a youth pastor, pro tip, if you're a youth pastor listening to this, is have a way that you communicate with those parents. Like, I know this is kind of off topic for us, but have a way where you can give the parents a heads up so that they know what you've talked about, so that when they have those conversations, they're deeper, right? And parents, like, if your youth pastor doesn't do that, ask. I'm sure they would love to tell you those things, even if they're not actively like taking that first step. Like, just ask them, and they will tell you. Though, hopefully, they've got a plan, and they can share that, and you're like in the know, so that when the kid says, "Oh, I don't know," well, you can be like, "Well, wasn't it something about David and Goliath?" How'd you know that? And
busted, right?
Busted. That's exactly right. So that's a good one. Another way that you can also help your kids really get excited about youth group and ensure that they're there is if you volunteer to help in the youth group. Now, there's different ways. Like, how do your kids feel about you leading the teens?
I don't know. I think my youngest is probably excited.
Yeah.
Because she's, my oldest hasn't seen me in that role.
Okay.
Ever. My youngest, because I've done stuff with like the younger children in our church, so I've done some of her classes. So I think she's a little bit excited. My oldest one is like, I don't know, like
she's also starting high school, so that's a different phase, right?
Yeah.
Some parents are like that. Like some kids are like, absolutely not. I don't want my parent in the room. And then some are like, that's awesome. Like my parents are there. Yeah. And they can hang out, and then it's not any extra stress because they're right there.
Yep. And the truth is that your kid is going to enjoy youth group midweek service more if you're engaged with it too.
Yep,
so
that's exactly
right. Just make it a whole family thing.
Yep, that's right. So with all of those things, so we've got setting those anchors, we've got specifically that youth group, getting back into things at church. Number 3, we would say, is just find a balance where you can balance school, faith, and life. And really, like, I've heard different takes on this, and some people love the word balance. Some people hate the word balance and would prefer, like, find the right tension or whatever. But, like, think about, like, a tightrope walker. If you've ever watched somebody do that, maybe at the circus or whatever, like, they'd never like stand straight right in the middle while they're going across the tightrope, right? They're constantly shifting back and forth to try and maintain balance. And that's really what life is like. Like, we understand that analogy. Like, there's going to be times, school is going to be, it's a little closer to exams. It's going to be a little bit heavier. Sports, maybe, church is in a heavy season where it's camps and VBS or whatever. Like, your balance is going to shift a little bit, but it's going to be constantly going back and forth. And if you go too far to one side, you're going to fall off that tightrope. So we've got to find that balance as parents for our family between school, church, sports, all the different activities we have going on. Like, what does it look like for our family so that school doesn't take over, right? Or sports don't take over our schedule. Again, don't let the tail wag the dog, right?
We actually did an episode on that, right?
We did.
Way back in spring. And so if you get a chance to go back and listen to that, it's this idea of you setting your calendar.
Yep.
And a few of the things that we talked about there is helping your children learn to say no to some things, right?
That's exactly right.
Like in our family, my youngest daughter, she plays softball, she plays basketball, and she used to want to do gymnastics or tumbling. And so we had to learn to say no to that because so she had to choose, right? And so she chose basketball, she chose
tumbling. Is that just like falling with style?
Yeah, like falling with style and rolling.
Okay. So, yeah. It's kind of, was that Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story?
That's right. Yep. And
wasn't flying. That was falling with style.
And then my oldest, you guys know, so she plays travel soccer, and it's a pretty competitive league. And she gets asked all the time, to run cross country for our school. She gets asked to play basketball for our school, and thankfully she's been disciplined enough to know, like, my priority is this, and so, like, this is the thing I'm going to do. Like, I don't want to do another thing that's going to make me busy because I don't want to have to choose between cross country and soccer. Like, I would rather just choose soccer now and not be put in a situation where I have to decide between a school basketball game and a travel basketball, soccer game or whatever. And so help them to learn to say no to things, and then build in one night of week of rest, right?
Yep.
No homework, no phones, just family. I know, Nate, you've talked about your Saturdays, right?
Yeah, we've talked about that. And so that's episode 11, keeping Christ to the center during busy times, if you want to go back and listen to that one. But yeah, we do that. It's like, this is our time. It actually starts Friday night in through to Saturday. And it's, not that I'm still mowing the grass, obviously, because when else am I going to do it? But like, that's our time. We're going to protect that family time.
Unless you get somebody to do it for you.
Unless I get somebody to do it for me. But I like mowing grass. I enjoy it.
Yep.
Except for right now, it's like the grass, I have to mow it like 3 times a week to stay on top of it. So
I had a parent
we're not doing that.
I had a parent that I ran into about a week ago, and they mentioned to me, we were having a conversation, and the topic of cutting grass came up, and they said, except you don't cut grass, right? and because we were talking about the podcast and what they listen to, and I was like, that was a moment where you knew, like, you've arrived, right? Here you've got a parent that listens to the podcast who's referencing the fact that, like, I don't cut my own grass.
I do. He does not. Also, I eat breakfast for dinner.
Oh, and I do not.
After cutting the grass. So, those things, I think there's a correlation there.
There may be a correlation.
So, anyway, but I would say the last thing, not only of having that day of rest, but also making sure, we already talked about our youth group, kids service, whatever, but Sunday worship. And again, we've talked about that, especially we hit it on episode 11, but making sure that Sunday time with your church family, right? The body of Christ coming together, not forsaking the assembly of yourselves together. Don't abandon them. Church is important. So get with your church family, worship together, learn together, grow together, no matter what else you have going on.
And let me just say something about that, right? Sunday is the traditional day of worship, but if your church has a Saturday service, we're not dogmatic about saying like, don't be creative in how you worship, right? Like our churches traditionally have Sunday service. Right. So that's why we're saying Sunday. So don't feel like, oh, well, I work on Sundays, so I'm already playing from behind. No, like if your church offers a Sunday night service and you can go to Sunday night service, then make that a priority. Yep. If you work on Sundays and your church has service on Saturday, or maybe you're in a situation where you're in a split home, right? And so like your child's not with you every Sunday, and like don't let the enemy defeat you by you thinking like, oh, I can't do that, so I'm not going to do any of it.
Right.
No, like
some is better than none.
Yes, right. And so where you can make it a priority. And so I say that, speaking from like experience, right? Because sometimes we're out of town because again, my daughter plays a pretty competitive travel soccer, and so we may not be able to be there Sunday morning, but we make a commitment that if we're not there Sunday morning, then we're going to be there Wednesday, right? Like, or if we're not going to be there Sunday morning, we find a way to worship together as a family, or even corporately with some of our soccer team folks on Sunday night or Sunday as part of it. And so, man, like, don't get discouraged and feel like, oh, I can't do that, so I'm not going to do any of it. No, like God wants what you can give him, even if that is just a little, but don't give up. Don't let the enemy defeat you and say, oh, you didn't go to Sunday morning worship, so you're a terrible Christian. You're a terrible parent. Nope, that's not how it works. You can still be committed to being involved some way, somehow.
That's right. So let's end with some encouragement here, right? We talked about these three things and just kind of being intentional and setting those routines. But just remember, parents, it's not your job to make your kid love Jesus, right? You can't make them love Jesus. But what you can do is keep putting them in places where they see him clearly, they see him working in your life, and like they say, more is caught than taught. And they will catch on to that, and they will fall in love with Jesus as they go through these routines, and the Holy Spirit works in their heart.
And don't underestimate the power of consistency, right? Even when you think they're not listening, even when you think they're not paying attention, you're planting the seeds that God will use later. Dad, just to encourage the dads that might be listening right now, especially if you have teenagers, you may be the dumbest person that they know, right? Like, we don't know anything. But man, like 10, 15, 20 years from now, when they're parents, that advice you gave them, that consistency that you showed, it's going to come back around.
Yep. That's right. And so parents, let's just pick one of these things we talked about, right? Pick a routine, a morning prayer routine, a Bible reading routine, something. Make that commitment to youth group or the kids service. Find that intentional family time. Make one thing, right? One change that you can start this week to really start those rhythms and build those habits in your family's life. Any last words, Lewis, as we launch this school year together?
Parents, don't just send your kid back to school. Launch them into a new year where their faith is growing, where their friendships are going to deepen, and where they're going to learn to walk closer with Jesus.
So I hope you all enjoyed that episode from the archives. That was episode 19. It was our back to school episode this past school year, and it was in season 2, kicking us off a new season. So I hope you guys make sure you hit subscribe so that you don't miss our next episode where we kick off season 3 next year. It's hard to believe we've been doing this for 3 school years, or this is our 3rd school year doing this. So we'll be back with you in in person with fresh new content next week. So make sure you subscribe. And even if you've heard this one before, this was a great one that you can share with another parent who needs it as well. But until then, keep leading the next generation to stand firm in their faith and influence the world for Christ.